All right, I wanted to share some of my thoughts on 2025 Walleye Opener. This should be an interesting year. So I'm going to try and share some of my thoughts that are maybe not going to just be, the standard stuff you hear from everybody, the standard tips, standard advice for opener. So couple big themes for me this year with opener is going to be, number one, the fact that it's looking like it's going to be extremely windy, especially on Sunday. So if you consider Walleye Opener to be Saturday and Sunday, yeah, Sunday is going to be really ripping, and Saturday is going to be somewhat windy as well. But that's one theme. And then the other theme to me is actually going to be the fact that it seems like we're going to have pretty warm water temperatures. We're going to have really warm temperatures leading into the opener this year. So it already seems like water temperatures are fairly high on area lakes, as we've kind of gone around and fished for crappies, maybe scouted around, looked for walleyes just to see where they're at. But also, this week I've spent a little bit of time in Wisconsin, and I'm seeing 52 to 58 degrees, sometimes 60 in certain parts of the lake. So, and that's like, a handful of days before Walleye Opener. So that being said, water temps are going to be higher, so that's going to also impact what we're doing. So what's going to be my advice with those things in mind, if those are the two main themes? I would say, first things first, usually I would say go to the wind-blown side of the lake for opener. Try and go to the places where the water temperatures are going to be the warmest. Though just the way lakes work, just the way science works. Usually the parts of the lake that are wind-blown are going to be warmer because that warmer water is up on top, and the wind is blowing the warm water towards that direction, and then it's actually kicking the cold water out the opposite direction. So, the other side of the lake is usually a lot colder. But with that being said, if there's going to be like an incredible amount of wind and you're just going to try and get out on Sunday or whatever, I think you want to avoid the wind, even if it means that you're not on, the warmer wind-blown side. So ultimately, just being able to fish effectively is going to be more important than being on a certain part of the lake, in my opinion. And with that in mind as well, I would also say your tactics and strategies might change a little bit this year, just based on that exact fact. Now for me, I love to cast. If you've watched a lot of my videos, yeah, obviously, I'm a big fan of casting, whether that's casting weed lines, rocks, casting individual marks on forward facing. But this might be a year where you spend a little bit more time trolling. It might be a year where you pick your windows during opener and try to get out when maybe it's going to be a little bit less windy. This might be a year where you pick smaller lakes. It's going to be an interesting year from that standpoint. But trolling, and also another great tactic is going to be dragging as well. So just getting that bait out behind the boat and just letting that wind push you. And that's something that we've done for years. And I mean, it's a tactic that we've used for bass and walleyes since I was a little kid. It's just throwing a jig out behind you and letting it drag. And that could be a jig and a minnow, which is super classic. It could be a jig and a plastic minnow. It could be a Ned rig. It could be a drop shot as well. But yeah, so dragging is going to be another big thing. But I would also say that a big trend that I've seen the last 4 or 5 years, especially, although it's been going on for a long time, is just fish being spooked and spooked of boats and all that. So that being said, make sure that you do have your jig a good ways out behind the boat, like 100 feet or so, or whatever it is. Obviously, you may want to use, if the wind is really crazy, you may want to use your trolling motor to kind of slow down your drifting speed so your boat isn't just flying and you're just moving really quickly. But dragging can be a really good tactic, especially this time of year, because fish are often scattered on big flats and stuff like that. So it's a great way to cover water and keep your bait in the zone for an extra long period of time, obviously. But another big thing I do want to say too is this might be a year to use heavier jigs, because seems like most of the time having, you know, bottom contact, or at least being somewhat close to the bottom, is pretty critical. And if you're fighting wind, you know, heavier jigs is going to help you cast. Heavier jigs is just going to help you stay closer to bottom. And if you're watching this video and, you know, you're the captain of the ship and you know what you're doing, you know, do what you want. But if you have some amateurs in the boat with you, you might want to give them heavier jigs just to make sure they're staying closer to the bottom. Especially when it's windy, you know, if you're drifting quickly, you know, obviously a lighter jig could be flapping in the water column behind the boat. So I'll probably be upsizing to a 1/4 ounce jig in some cases. But while we're on the topic of tactics, you know, jigs and whatever, I would say another thing to think about as well is just the fact that water temperatures are definitely going to be warmer this year than most years. And like, if I had to guess, I'm not 100% sure, I haven't been out there, but if I had to guess, I would think water temps on Mille Lacs, which is right in the middle of the state of Minnesota, are probably going to be like 60-ish if I had to guess. So when you think about tactics, for me, I would definitely start thinking about kind of more late spring, even early summer-ish type tactics. So, you know, I'm not telling you don't grab minnows, don't bring minnows. Definitely grab some minnows, especially if that's a confidence thing for you. But grabbing night crawlers, jigs and night crawlers, different other night crawler type rigging presentations, I think can be effective for opener this year. Obviously, you're definitely going to have success with minnows still. I'm definitely not saying don't grab minnows. But yeah, I would say another thing too is, like, this might be a really good year to catch them on plastic. So if you are using live bait and you're catching a few fish, switch to plastics. I found some years like this where water temps are a lot higher. I found that we've almost caught more fish on plastics some years. And I'm talking, you know, clear bodies of water. Well, you know, if it's a body of water like Mille Lacs or something where it's clear body of water, this isn't some dingy, you know, fishery or whatever where it seems like you can have more success on, you know, bigger artificials that are just moving water. This is a, you know, for the most part, finesse fishery. And yeah, jigging plastics, years like this where it's warm, we've had a lot of success, you know, where it seems like, you know, the years where maybe it's colder and the fish aren't quite as far along and their metabolism isn't as high. This is getting a little bit dark, isn't it? Isn't as high. It seems like on days like that, you know, you might have to really slow down and you might have to use, you know, really heavily rely on meat. So I guess those are just a few of my thoughts. I didn't want to get too long-winded. I kind of wanted to have this just be a little bit more of a, you know, no cuts, just a little, you know, unfiltered dialogue of some of my thoughts. But yeah, I didn't want to drag it out too long, but you know what, it probably is already getting a little bit long. But yeah, opener's such an awesome time. I mean, this is a holiday, you know, here in the state of Minnesota. You know, so many people go out on certain bodies of water every year. They go to the cabin. It's awesome. But I would say one thing that I don't like is that I feel like Wisconsin is doing it right to some degree, and Minnesota is doing it wrong to some degree. I don't see why we don't make fishing opener 1 week earlier in the state of Minnesota. And the reason for that is because, well, first and foremost, you get 1 more week of fishing, which is just straight up a benefit for sure. 1 extra week of fishing, and you know, we get to take advantage of a little bit more of an earlier spring bite, and you know, watch that progression happen for 1 extra week. But another big thing is, I feel like mothers always get shafted on Mother's Day and fishing opener, because it's the same weekend. So I feel like you could solve so many things by just making it 1 week earlier. You know, the mothers get all the extra attention the next week because, you know, maybe their husbands or, their family or whatever went fishing the weekend before, so then they get Mother's Day to themselves. And yeah, I don't know. Obviously, there's a lot of mothers who love fishing, but I feel like the vast majority of them, you know, would prefer to do other Mother's Day activities. So anyway, that's my little rant. I'm losing my brain power here, so anytime I talk for more than 5 minutes in a row, I start forgetting what I was thinking. So we're gonna cut this video right here, and I hope you guys have an awesome walleye opener, bass opener, fishing opener in the state of Minnesota here, and I hope you guys catch a lot of fish and also have a really good time. That's important too. If you don't catch any fish, at least have a good time doing it.